I know my friend Julius has a lot to discuss today, so thank you all for joining us. Just a few notes of housekeeping before we kick things off. We choose to run our events in a Teams platform, Microsoft Teams platform, so that you are able to communicate with us. We have both the chat open as well as question and answer. We'll try to answer the chats in the flow of conversation if we're able, and if not, we will definitely have time for question and answer at the end. Following this event, within a couple of days, you will receive a recording of it if you'd like to review or if there's anything that you've missed, along with notes and a summary of what took place. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend Julius, who has a lot of information to cram into 1 hour. So I hope you're ready to learn everything you ever wanted to know about Microsoft Copilot. And with that, I will turn it over to Julius Damato.
Thank you, Jen. Hello, everybody. Again, Julius Damato, Director of Microsoft Modern Work and AI Solutions here. We do have 42 slides to get through, so hopefully you are paying somewhat attention today. Real quick, for an agenda, we're going to cover what Microsoft 365 Copilot is, importantly, what it's not for those that are unfamiliar. We'll talk about why you would use it over ChatGPT or XYZ. We'll talk a bit about licensing, talk about the current incentives and promotions that are taking place to help drive innovation, as well as what makes effective prompting. And then really we'll talk a bit about some of the new features, as this is a product that evolves kind of weekly. So let's kind of get right into it. So importantly, what is Microsoft 365 Copilot? As Microsoft describes it, it's an orchestration layer. It's not actually a large language model. So when you're interacting with Copilot, you're not using the LLM directly like you would with ChatGPT or Bard or any of the other models that are available. You're interacting with a system to orchestrate your prompt or instruction over to a large language model that is best suited to handle the request. How that highlights is when you ask Copilot questions, it generates that answer in real time. Or if you provide instruction, it will action that in real time. It's not curated questions and answers it's pulling from. It's not coming from a list. It is going out and getting the information when you ask it. So here on screen, as you can see, if you ask Microsoft Copilot, what is a Copilot, it'll give you a different answer almost every single time, depending on where you ask it, how you ask it, and the like. So, by the way, this is a PowerPoint live presentation being done through Teams. So if there are any links on screen, you're welcome to click them and it'll open up for you automatically. So that's how Copilot functions. And that's important when you look at how Microsoft has Copilot positioned. So if you're not aware, Copilot's everywhere. I'm sure you've seen the marketing materials. I'm sure you've seen it in your various applications when you get through the day. But the two large ones that we're going to talk about today is Microsoft 365 Copilot as well as Microsoft standard Microsoft Copilot. Now, we are talking about the enterprise versions today. We're not talking about the consumer side versions. So if you have a personal Microsoft 365 subscription that has Copilot, there are different feature sets between the two. But we're talking again about the enterprise versions. And with that, Copilot is everywhere, right? So you have in the Power Platform, you have in Power Apps, you can use it in Power Automate. There are paid Copilot experiences on top of the Microsoft 365 Copilot version. So there is one for service, one for finance, one for security, one for sales. If you're using Dynamics 365, there's a separate paid one there as well. And really, these are agents that are there to provide a more tailored experience and drive business decisions, help with process automation, and work through tasks. Now, talk about how Copilot works. The Microsoft 365 architecture is here on screen. I'm not going to spend too much time here as it gets pretty technical and would bore probably the majority of you. So if you want to know more or talk about the nitty-gritty, feel free to reach out. We can talk about it. But I want to emphasize that everything with Microsoft 365 starts with a user prompt. So everything that happens there, a user has to provide instruction. They have to ask a question in order for it to process it. Again, as I mentioned, the Copilot itself is the orchestration layer. So it's in the middle and it's handling the grounding. It's handling the compliance and purview post-processing, not the large language model. So again, Copilot takes the instruction, processes it appropriately, and then sends it over to the LLM. To talk about those LLMs, they are built on Azure OpenAI. It is the shared SaaS solution that's available. That hosts the models, and then when you are providing instructions, it goes over to there. That being said, OpenAI has no access to those models. Those models are curated by Microsoft. They're trained, they're coached using their own internal processes. They have their own adventures there. So importantly, your data is your data. So prompts and responses and grounding data is never used to inform the model, never used for transformation or the like. So everything in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem is referenceable in the orchestration. So that's really one of the biggest proponents to using the Microsoft ecosystem, is it has that contextual understanding of how you communicate, where you're going, things of that nature, provided you're using all of the Microsoft ecosystem in a sense. So if you're today having meetings in Zoom and having chats in Slack, Microsoft 365 Copilot may not be the most useful because it's missing that context. Importantly as well is Copilot has access to plugins and to the web. So if you want to reference material that is available open on the web that you don't have access to directly in your organization, so let's just say you have data metrics from 2023 and you want data from 2024, as long as it's on the web and you provide the appropriate prompt, it will go out to the web and get you those data points. From a plugin perspective, it's kind of the most, I don't want to say controversial, but is one of the most difficult to talk through just because that is very vendor specific. But there are integrations with plugins for all major platforms. So if you wanted to pull in data from Box, from Dropbox, from Ignite, you wanted to talk to use agents from FactSet, pull in data from various other platforms, you're able to do that with plugins and connectors, and we can certainly help you achieve those goals with those specific agents or build you custom ones to handle that. Now, I've mentioned agents a few times, and importantly, that's really the next step. So for those of you who are using Copilot today, you're likely familiar with the chat interface, you're likely familiar with being able to interact day to day and getting it into your daily workflow, and that's your chat experience, that's your in-app experience, those are those direct integrations. When you look at that, Microsoft refers to that as the one-for-one for Copilot. So every user has a Copilot, and you're able to, get relatively good efficiencies out of that. You get what they refer to as the ROT, or the return on time, and get users thinking more outside the box and handling kind of those remedial questions and answers from there. The evolution and the further expansion of that is with agents. So that's where you can have Copilot be more autonomous. You can have it help you drive business decisions. You can use it to automate tasks and processes. So if you get that Morgan Stanley email every Monday and you want to have it processed by an agent and re-summarize and have that data presented to the team with certain data sets from the previous week and things of that nature, that's where agents come into play. So really, what are agents? Agents are, from a very simple perspective, can retrieve information. So they can ground, they can reason, they can help summarize, as I've mentioned, and answer user questions. Now, these agents can be very simple human resources bots. They can be more complex with tasks, as you get kind of in the middle there with automating workflows, as I've mentioned. And then finally, when you start getting into the autonomous, that's where you're using dynamic plans, you're setting up orchestration, you're using multimodal agents and models, all within the ecosystem to help drive that. And importantly, is when you're using Copilot agents, is it doesn't have to be the model that Microsoft is automatically selecting for you. If you want to host a model in your own Azure OpenAI instance and send the prompts or send the requests or train a model, things of that nature, you're perfectly capable of doing that. It's something that the platform natively supports. So if you're struggling a bit with trying to get some of the automations in with some of the OpenAI models, and you know that some of the fintech models and things like that work better for your use case, they can be brought in, they can be used, and then you can really simplify the interface for end users. And importantly, from a compliance perspective, ensure that you're logging and tracking user interactions and adjusting the agents where necessary. So when you look at the spectrum of agents, as I mentioned, they can be very simple around IT help desks. They can help you with project tracking, which is an actual native agent now that Microsoft provides you free with the 365 licensing. You're able to do stuff like that. And then your more advanced ones comes into helping you generate leads, helping you build multi-agent triggered support agents and things of that nature to really help you kind of do more with your business and drive, again, business decisions with that. Now, to talk a bit about the tooling, we will have a completely separate presentation and in-person event that we're hosting in New York at the Microsoft Center in May. So do be on the lookout for invitations for that. We will be doing that in person. We'll be building agents, talking about that, helping with the next step of this agentic experience that Microsoft is moving towards. But we will be talking about building those in the three areas. So we'll work with real basic end user help, which is no code with the agent builder provided in the portal. Then we'll be building agents with Copilot Studio, and that's using topics and helping build in automations. And then finally, if there's time available in that event, we will go into the advanced stuff, as I mentioned, of building, having a separate model, answer certain requests, and handle certain data points from that perspective. So I've mentioned a couple of different models already. I've talked about why you would want to use Copilot a little bit over ChatGPT directly, but importantly, let's highlight some of it, right? So from a product perspective, Microsoft 365 Copilot is meeting people where they work, right? So in your Office applications, it's already there. You don't have to have a user disconnect from what they're doing, open up another application, have something open on another screen. If they have a question, they can simply click a button. If the Copilot hasn't automatically identified that there may be something useful for you, and ask those. So you can use it to automate tasks. You can use it to generate emails. You can help it transform, right? It has contextual understanding, as I mentioned before, that ChatGPT doesn't always have, right? So when you look at your AI landscape or you look at your data sets, why take your content and bring it to the tool? The tool should meet you where your data lives so that you can ensure that all your data policies are being met. If you have restrictions or DLP rules in place to prevent data usage for specific data types or classifications or labels, that's being honored. Doing it with the Microsoft 365 ecosystem allows you to achieve that very simplistically. You have no plugins that you need to deploy. There's no additional connectors required. You don't have to worry about your data being transferred to a different platform. You can use what you already have, protect your data, and transform that with AI. Additionally, you get enterprise-grade security with Microsoft 365 Copilot, so it meets all GDPR regulations. It is GCC approved. You do get data residency and privacy controls on those data sets if you have those requirements. And then all of your prompts, your responses, again, aren't used to train the underlying model. Enterprise versions of ChatGPT offer that to a degree. They still do some form of transformation and education, even though they say they don't. It's part of your agreement with them, so you have that there. But from a security perspective and a peer review integration, right, you're able to see users' interactions. You're able to see what data points. You're able to identify how the user got to that conclusion and how the tooling did it for you, where it pulled the information. You can see all of that in the chain of thought and really drill into that and set up automation around triggers. So if Jimmy is a low-risk user and he automatically gets set to high risk because he has a login from a suspicious location, he failed MFA prompts too many times, he's typed his password wrong too many times, that elevated risk can be used to lock down his ability to use Copilot or other agents or the platform as a whole. So being able to tie it all in and set up those controls and automations really helps you in the long term in driving innovation there. So to talk more directly about it and highlight it even further is, again, that direct integration. It's embedded in the Office 365 apps, has the contextual relevance of what's in the organization, both from yourself and from the entire org as a whole, using the semantic index or the semantic search is what it builds there. You can leverage Microsoft Purview for compliance, not only with Microsoft 365 Copilot, but when we set up Purview on our end for our clients and work with their compliance teams, we set it up so that you have the ability to apply compliance controls to any tooling that you would want to. So if you want to put DLP rules on top of ChatGPT, we can integrate it with Purview. If you are using third-party platforms and you want to be able to have data protections in place, we can use Purview to do that. And you can get that as granular or as wide as you would like that. So if you want to have it record actions, you want to have it prevent copy-paste to specific platforms or only use organizationally approved platforms for copy-paste, things of that nature, you can have that. And then from a use case perspective, Microsoft 365 Copilot is everywhere, unfortunately and fortunately. So it's in Word, it's in Excel, it's PowerPoint, you'll have it in Planner, it's in Microsoft Loop, it's in Microsoft Edge. So again, meets users where they work regularly without having to jump through hoops. So to talk a bit about licensing, because it is everyone's favorite topic, so I'll try and keep this short, is you should really look at Microsoft 365 V5 licensing if you're not there today. Importantly, is it includes all of the data protections that I've talked about already that can be applied to multiple platforms. It can be applied to SaaS. It can extend to Google Workspace, AWS, the likes. You can put protections on SQL databases, really, the sky's the limit there. But when you step into the E5 license, you get all the stuff that you're likely already paying for with separate subscriptions. So you likely have Office 365 E3 or Office 365 E5 with EMS, which is Enterprise Mobility and Security E5 or E3. And then if you have to journal or externally archive, you have to add a compliance and security license as well to make sure that that's being picked up by Global Relay or SMARsh. When you look at that cost, right, you're only in most cases a few dollars short of the E5, and you get significantly more protection with it. You're able to do more with the licensing, whether you want to do cloud app protection, you want to look at doing endpoint monitoring and protection, you want to do DLP, just-in-time access, and ensure you have enterprise data protection controls, lockdown, set up MAM before mobile devices, your Windows endpoints, your Macs. It's all included with that one bundled SKU, and then you can consolidate your cost. So when you look at it from an annual perspective, when I talk with clients, in most cases, you can save anywhere between $2 and $12. And in some cases, it is only an extra $5 or $6 more to step into that E5 license. And again, turn on the features that you probably say you do with a third-party tool or do it with regular checks and balances. But if you can automate a lot of that, you can bring it forward to the business. It's easier to help proposition it. So I've talked a lot about Purview, but to summarize it as very shortly as possible, is it is Microsoft's data governance service that does support on-premise, multi-cloud, and SaaS-based environments. So you can apply Purview protections quite literally anywhere. They're directly in there. When you're licensed at E5, you get access to the premium connectors for those. So as I mentioned, if you want to set up data labeling policies or data classification policies and extend them into Dropbox or Box or bring them into Google Workspace, or you have Ignite and you want protection there, it's a very simple thing to get turned on. You can set up all your controls again in one place and ensure that those are being met where your data lives. It is for data discovery, classification, it does cataloging, it does data access and sharing management, it's for compliance and risk management, and it can do a lot. Importantly, is it's not necessarily designed for IT. So if you're an IT person, you're CTO, you're CIO, you're in the weeds day to day from a support perspective, the portal is not exactly designed for you. Setting up the policies, yes, you go and do that. But it is really designed for your compliance team to go in there, look at data, make business-driven decisions, elevate things they think are suspicious to, head of compliance or to IT to look at the technical side of it. It builds a full train of what occurred. So if someone clicks a risky link in an email or in a website, and it puts them at high risk, and it makes a change and affects that entire chain is audited, the entire chain is tracked, and you're able to see who accessed what, where, what IPs were being used. So it is a very powerful platform. It ties into the rest of the Microsoft ecosystem for Defender, Intune, and the like, and it really does provide a cohesive, all-in-one solution for that. To help drive that, when you talk about data security solutions, you can look at it in the 4 buckets. You have your data access, your data protection, your governance and lifecycle management, and then you have insights and visibility. So when you look at AI, a lot of this is super important. From a data access perspective, you do want to ensure that data owners understand who has access to the content that they own. When in this modern world of modern data security and data sharing, a lot of it is there where the data owners are the ones who are really responsible. It's less on IT, more on the people creating the content, more the people sharing the content that are responsible for that. And setting up reports is a nightmare. Thankfully, when you're licensed for Microsoft 365 Copilot, SharePoint Advanced Management is now included with that. So you get access to the oversharing reports. You get access to all the auditing that's available. You can set up RCGs, which are restricted content groups, things of that nature, to really control who has access to SharePoint and really remove that ambiguity of who has access to what, or again, paying for a third-party platform to do that for you. It's in the licensing. It's already included. Use the tools that are at hand. It automates the process. So you get an email that says, hey, Jimmy, here are the files that people have access to over the last 30 days. Who should have access to this content? Should you hit approve or deny? You also can take the Microsoft recommendations that looks at various metrics there and ensure your data hygiene is met there. And that ties into doing data protection, right? So having sensitivity labeling on where it's needed for the business or for that type of content is important, but it's not required. So if you want to do data loss prevention policies on content classifications, on content location, things of that nature. You don't have to do a full tilt data labeling exercise and do a real strict enforcement. You can slow roll into Purview using the tooling that's there and largely use it to help prevent someone from printing something they weren't supposed to, or using content that is sensitive and it being processable or usable by Copilot or the other AI tools. A lot of clients that we're working with now are really looking to prevent people from copying, pasting content out of documents and putting it into ChatGPT or putting it into a third-party platform that is, air quote, open. So being able to control that is now more important than ever. Is it foolproof? No. Does it prevent someone from taking a picture and processing it with a tool with a picture? Unfortunately not. But the goal is to deter and to alert and notify if those events are taking place. That leans into insight risk management, doing data posture and security management for AI and platform as a whole, and handling that. So that goes into there. Finally, from a lifecycle and governance perspective, you all likely say that you do access reviews. Why not automate that? So with the E5 licensing, with the power of Copilot, you're able to set up Entra ID identity governance reports and reviews. So it's able to go ahead, again, as I've mentioned, say, hey, here's who has access to the content. Here are your external users in your organization. Here are the guests that were invited. Should they still have access? Should these auto purge every 30 days? Should you be handling those? Likely you have a business process that identifies that. If you don't, reach out. We can help you build those business policies and then build the technology to enforce those. But you should have those policies built today to match what you're saying you do and have auditable tracking. And that's the importance of all this. Everything I'm talking about is audited, it's trackable, it has admin logs behind it, and it really drives that. And then for data lifecycle management, arguably one of the most important sides of this is if you have old stale data and you process it with AI, it will give you old stale results. And that's some of the stuff that a lot of clients kind of start to stumble on is we have data from 2008, it's being referenced with AI. And it's like, well, do you really need that data from 2008? Should you move that to a location that it's not really available? Should you set up controls to prevent people from accessing that content, or should you just remove it in general or archive it? We can set up the controls, you can set up the capabilities there, and the platform enables you to do that and achieve that. So I'm talking about spending more money, but let's talk about real quick how you can save some money. So today, Microsoft is offering 15% off annual commitments for Microsoft 365 E5 subscriptions. Importantly, those have to be new to Microsoft 365 E5, meaning you have to have never had the subscription in your tenant before in order to get that 15% discount. You can do it on a monthly payment if you don't want to do annual payment. But as long as you annual commit, you have anywhere between 1 and 2,400 licensing, you can get there. So 15% off of the $57-ish can get you at a price point that makes it important to get there. And then again, you can turn on the controls there. Importantly, this runs until June 30th, so you have time to make a decision and look at it holistically. We can help you make those decisions, get the licenses assigned, and work with you to get those the technologies I'm mentioning implemented in your organization. And this is a global, worldwide promotion. So Microsoft has opened it up. So if you're in the UK, you're in Singapore, you're in Hong Kong, you're anywhere, you can get the 15% discount. If you want to learn more, reach out to your account manager, reach out to one of our sales reps if you're not a client of ours already, and they can go ahead and get you more information on that as well. So I've done a lot of talking about the technology, setting up the security, doing all that jazz, but where I find the most helpful for clients is on the education side. We can do everything in the background to get your technology ready for Copilot or other AI tools, but if people aren't using them properly or don't know how to use them, that's where you start to fall flat. So I have a couple of slides to go through some prompt engineering, some things you can keep in mind for Copilot. So if you're licensed for Copilot, you can feel free to follow along with me now or take these and use them with your groups. Have at it. But largely when I look at clients and what they're doing from a prompting perspective, they're prompting less efficiently. So to call it out, Microsoft 365 Copilot and even the regular Microsoft Copilot does require you to do some run-up with your prompts. It's not like ChatGPT or Bard or them where it'll run on, or you can be very vague and it'll kind of build this storyboarding for you. If that's what you want, you need to tell it that's what you're looking for. Microsoft takes a very security-focused approach. They don't want hallucinations. They don't want it to ramble. They want it to, provide feedback and do work that you're expecting. So if you're being vague with your prompts, if you're using just a few words, you're not providing context on preferred output, understand that your prompt may not get you what you're looking for. So the way I look at it and the way that I function daily, to just talk about my own experiences, if I'm brainstorming, if I'm looking for something new, if I'm doing something that doesn't require me to be drilled in and focused, I'll be vague. If I'm idea building, I'll be vague. If I'm looking to build a specific SOW for a client, work on this presentation, things of that nature, I will build the prompt to be there. So if you just ask it to summarize a news article about a specific company, it's going to be vague. It'll be a couple of paragraphs at best, maybe a couple bullet points if it thinks that's appropriate, and that'll be it. But if you give it more context around, you work in marketing, you focus on competitive research, you want to have a concise summary about news, you want it to focus on announcements, things of that nature, it will keep that in mind and use that. Now, this is more of a web-focused prompt, but you can take that same mentality and use it for your internal prompts, and you'll see a little bit about that in a few moments. But everything that I'm saying here, do keep in mind what I'm saying is you may be prompting, but it's not necessarily wrong. It's just less efficient. Copilot's built to be conversational. You don't expect that when you put in one prompt, you're going to get your final draft. You're going to get it perfect right out of the rip. It doesn't happen. That's not how Copilot is designed to be. It's meant to be conversational, help you find insights, help you drill into data sets, and really get there. But feel free to experiment. So when you talk about the art and science of prompting, right, prompts are how you ask Copilot to do anything. You can take what I'm talking about today and really apply it to any large language model. But where Copilot excels is it can help you learn. It can help you edit text. It can help you transform. You can use it for summarizations, create new content, catch up on anything you may have missed, and really use the context of what you have there and pass it along, right? You're able to use it in your daily workflow and do more. One of the other things that a lot of clients stumble on is, well, I want users to put it into their daily workflow. I want them to start the day with Copilot or end the day with Copilot. So if people aren't aware of how to prompt or what prompts they should be passing through, or they come back from PTO and just kind of forget about it and do the thing they normally do, it's difficult to get people engaged with Copilot. So think about how users use Copilot on a daily basis from where can they slot that in. So if you start your day by looking through emails, maybe instead of looking at your Outlook, just prompt Copilot when you wake up in the morning, like unfortunately I do because I work at 5 a.m., just like all of you likely do. And I say, hey, what are my top priorities for the day? What didn't I do yesterday that I should address today? Things of that nature. And it will service that for you. When you look at your prompts, look at it at 4 different ingredients, right? You have a goal, a context, a source, and an expectation. You do not need to put all 4 of these in your prompt all the time. I'm just going to tell you that right off the rip. It's something you should keep in mind. Importantly here, though, is the formatting, your grammar, how you have your prompt structured is important. We all talk a bit different. We've all have different social experiences. I'm originally from New York. I'm now in Chicago. I say water. You may say water. Some of you go to the park. Some of you go to the park. It all affects how we talk, how we conversate, how we build our sentence structures. And Copilot or any large language model doesn't really comprehend that. It's a robot in a sense. So you do need to look at how your prompting is working, how you're building your prompts, and structuring them. If you need help with this, there is an agent that is available if you're licensed for Copilot called the Prompt Coach. You can get that right from the interface and add it. And you can ask it questions on, here's what I prompted, here was my output, how can I get a better response? And it'll help you build better prompting. It's a great tool that Microsoft, or a great agent Microsoft has built specifically for that, and keeps a lot of what I'm talking about here in mind when doing so. Now, you can play around with where you put your goal in your context, but I do want to emphasize that the very last sentence you put into Copilot will be what it emphasizes the most. So if you are trying something and it's not really working, adjust your prompt, but put what you want at the end. So if you wanted to visualize data as a graph, put that at the end. If you want it to be able to give you a very concise summary in the context of a business analyst, put that at the end of your prompt, and it will honor that. That was what it assumes is your expectation, to call out that part of the prompt. And then lastly, as I've mentioned, it is meant to be conversational. It's meant to keep going. So you will see it offer you additional prompts or offer additional insights. Look at those. You will likely find that that is ultimately where you want it to go. If you've been using Copilot longer than your peers, or if you're just new to Copilot, you will see a little bit of a different experience as it does learn a bit about how you prompt, what your job role is, the data sets you normally interact with to give you those types of recommendations. But it's great at identifying insights. It can be insightful for meetings. I use it to build agendas. There's a now in new Outlook to call it out. There are features around building agendas, having it put together content that is related to the meeting ahead of the meeting, helping with storyboarding, gaining insights on data sets, as I mentioned. Translating languages is one of the biggest things it can do greatly. It also has regional dialect context for most languages now, supports over 43. So if you're someone who works with other regions and you want them to speak their native language, you can use the interpreter agent in Teams to interpret that and translate it to a language that you speak, and let them speak their natural language, and then you can get it in English and or what your preferred language, because it can go, just say Japanese to Spanish as an example. You're able to do that. And then one of the biggest use cases that I use is have it solve technical problems for you. If you need help writing code, if you're having an issue with Outlook, you need help putting everything in dark mode because you live in a dungeon, you have that ability to do that. Just ask the question. It's a Microsoft tool. It has the most answers on Microsoft products. So to help you get started, here are the top 10 first tries of Microsoft 365 Copilot. Some of these, if you've been using Copilot for a while, may seem pretty obvious, but I always like to talk about them because there are stuff here that a lot of people don't realize that you can do. Again, you can have it somewhere as a document. Speaking to, there's an update to Word that will get pushed out in a couple of days or weeks, depending on a couple of variables, where you're able to be conversational with Word now. So if you wanted to have it read the document to you, you wanted to generate a summary, and you use natural language to just talk at your phone or talk at your Windows device and have a conversation about the content that's there, that's being pushed out. That was a consumer feature that a lot of people were looking for to come into Microsoft 365 Copilot. So starting in Word, and you'll see that roll into the rest of the experiences as well. It's able to do that. If you need help with fixing formulas in Excel, it can do it. If you need help with being less vague, I had a very engaging conversation with a client the other day that was trying to decline a meeting and didn't know how to say it in a very polite way. They realized that this wasn't a business venture they wanted to go with, and they just needed a quick response. So very quickly, they were able to just, with a single prompt, put that into Copilot, have it generate an email, send it along, and wish them good days. If you want more prompts from these 10, you can click the link that's there. It's aka.ms/prompts. It'll take you to the prompt gallery, which used to be the Copilot Lab, which used to be the Prompt Lab. It's changed names about 12.5 times, but there are very simple prompts that you can go there, click, it'll automatically put it into your Copilot for you, and then you can fill in the data set that you need. Now, some more on that to help you view that. Again, you'll get the recording so you can look at some of these when you have there, but help you do it. As I mentioned, it can help you code better. You can use it for doing research. More about that in a little bit. You can help it calculate. You can help it summarize files. As I've mentioned, all stuff that Copilot really does excel with, using contextual data that lives in your business. So if you're asking to create a marketing campaign and you have marketing material, you can have it reference that, or it will reference what you have there automatically to generate those for you, so you can make sure it's meeting business best practices from those. And then it can help you with brainstorming. I use it a ton. So you can help it to co-create, you can help it start conversations, you can use it to disagree gracefully, as I've mentioned before. And importantly, I haven't mentioned it directly, but you tell Copilot what to do, you can also tell it what not to do. So if it's generating something you don't like, you can either exclude it as a part of your initial prompt, or during your storyboarding or your continual work through it, you're able to say, hey, don't do this anymore, include this instead, or substitute this word or this phrase for this, etc. So you're able to transform with the content that's already generated before you take it kind of as it is. Now, let's talk a bit about what's new, because I'm sure that's why some of you are here as well. I'm going to talk about really the two most important agents that Microsoft announced. I guess it was the beginning of last week now. That is the researcher agent as well as the analyst agent. So for those of you that are using ChatGPT for its deep research feature set, that is coming to Microsoft 365 Copilot. It will be able to use the OpenAI research model. Again, it'll be a copy of it in a sense, and then it'll be retailored and restructured to work with Copilot orchestration. But you're able to use those deep search capabilities to help you do those tasks. So that's coming. Today, it'll only be available to customers that are enrolled in what Microsoft is calling the Frontier program. There are some requirements that are needed to be a part of the program. So if it's something you're interested in, again, reach out to your account manager, your client technology manager. We can look to see if we can get you signed up for that. There's a couple of asterisks that are needed to get that working, but it's something that is coming, and it's something that a lot of clients are excited for, because again, now you can get in Microsoft Purview how it came to the result, what it was using for references, all the citations, see that in the prompts, and then ensure that that's being retained, logged, audited, if it had negative sentiment, if it was generating content it wasn't supposed to, if someone's trying to be nefarious and have it generate stuff with PII, if that's something you need. It's all protections you can put in place on it. And then again, Analyst is coming as well, so it'll use the O3 mini reasoning model to help you code. It can use Python for more complex queries. Again, that will be something that comes as a part of the Frontier program, and you can learn more by reaching out, and we can help you with that as well. Oh, that is not the button I need. Thank you. New changes for the chat is if you're someone who has images that wanted to have it interpreted, you can do that today. That launched actually in February silently. I don't know why they don't talk about this more, but I'll get to that towards the end of here too. So if you have images, it has the ability to interpret it. This is coming to its ability to process PDFs soon. So today, for those of you who use Copilot with your PDFs, you know that it has to largely be selectable text. It kind of skips over graphs and charts and images. So the image interpretation feature will come to PDF and Word and PowerPoint, etc. in the next coming months. So do know that will fold in as well. But if you have images and you want interpretation, you can do it with the web version of the chat, as long as you're signed in with your corporate Entra ID account. From a summarization perspective in Word, this has been a game changer for me. It now supports 1.5 million words, where before it was restricted to 80,000 words. That 80,000 limit actually came in November. Before that, it was about 30,000. So it's been significant jumps in there. It does support multiple languages, as I've mentioned. So if you have a document in a different language you want to translate, or you want to keep it in that language and get just a summarization in your native language, it has that capability to do that. It is only in the web version today, but it will roll out to Windows and Mac later this week. So you should see that fold in. Something that's not on here, actually it's on the next slide, so I'll talk about that there, is you now have the ability to do enhanced text selection. So that was a feature that a lot of clients asked for, is they weren't able to just select text and just have that one piece regenerated, or ask questions about what was highlighted. That's all there now. You're able to select stuff, have it reformat, have it restructure, so it's able to do that. They've expanded the file referencing feature, so it supports text documents. You can reference a script in a Word document if that's something you really want to do. That's all supported there now. That's all built-in functionality. So you should see that. If a lot of the features I'm mentioning, some are still, as Microsoft refers to as preview, but production ready. So if you're under a certain seat count and a couple of other caveats, you may not see these features just yet. It's part of Microsoft's modern rollout initiatives, so you may see it a week or 2 or 3 after your colleagues, but do know it's just part of how Microsoft rolls that out, and it's based on seats and various other usage metrics so that Microsoft can get appropriate feedback. In PowerPoint, the storyboarding and the narrative builder, which was used largely to generate this presentation if it wasn't transparent already, supports you now using your own documents in there. So previously it would just add access to what was on the web. Now it can do it with documents that you reference. Additionally, on top of that, you can summarize PowerPoint presentations that are over that are 40,000 words or less, or up to 150 slides. That was a pretty big limit before. So if you have those big decks that you get from conferences, or talking to me because I have big heavy slides if I'm not doing demonstrations, you can now summarize those very easily. I'll talk about the grounded chat in Excel and some of the Excel features. As we all know, Excel is likely probably the biggest loser in the race when it comes to Copilot native integrations. So the chat interface now is grounded in content in the workbook, so you don't have to reference other pieces. You'll see that as kind of templated prompts for you. It will suggest additional prompts for efficiency, and there are some pre-canned ones that you'll see that'll pop up to help you enhance data understanding that rolled out back in February. But what rolled out last month that I like probably more because I don't use Excel that often is its data visualization enhancements, its ability to do formula suggestions, and then user screen sharing. So Copilot can be used there to do that. Doesn't look like that's on the right slide. So apologies there. Copilot is able to see what else is in your Excel file and do work from there. I see that there's a slide missing. So that user screen sharing item there at the bottom isn't for Excel. That's actually for Microsoft Teams. So if you use Microsoft Teams for your meetings and you do a screen share, Teams will interpret what is happening on screen now. So as long as you're recording and transcribing the meeting, when you go and ask Copilot questions about the meeting, it will use what was on screen as content, as in the context. So if you ask it, what was Jimmy talking about with his PDF that was on screen or the document we were building, if that wasn't directly shared in the meeting, it will understand that was being screen shared. To help you prepare for your meetings, as I mentioned previously, there is its ability to create summarizations for upcoming meetings, so you can look at those as a part of your calendar. It's on the web only, but it will come to the new Outlook shortly. To call it out, a lot of the Copilot features are only going to be available in new Outlook. I get this question probably more than any other question, believe it or not. Microsoft will be rolling out or enforcing new Outlook for enterprise licensing soon, later this month. If you have new employees, if you roll out new computers, things of that nature, assign new licenses, they will default to new Outlook. So if you're not using new Outlook today, the unfortunate side is you will want to look at getting more familiar with it. Microsoft will be forcing it in the near future. I can't disclose dates yet just due to NDAs, but know that by 2026, if you haven't looked at new Outlook or started moving your plugins to new Outlook, you should start that journey, as it will be something that will be more prevalent in 2026. Lastly, if you get anything from this presentation, I will say is that link at the top there. So that is the release notes link that Microsoft has available. That covers all of the releases and all the new stuff that is happening with Microsoft 365 Copilot weekly. So you don't need to wait for me if you've ever done anything Copilot enablement related to get that newsletter that I send out every month about what's new. You can see what's been added for the week and go ahead and try most of those features when they're available. But to highlight some of them that are here is in the Copilot chat, there's enhanced entity context cards that will be popped up, so you'll be able to see web content in more context view of where in the page it's pulled that content from. In Copilot Studio, you're able to add enterprise data with newer graph connectors. So you want to connect to a SQL database, you can do it. Managed instance, want to reach over to AWS and pull data from those connectors, all stuff that Copilot Studio can do now. And the admin center, there's been significant changes. So if you're someone who wants to look at adoption scoring, help drive adoption in the business, look at educational materials, that's all now on the admin page, as well as you have more granular control over agents that people build in the agent builder. That's a really big improvement from what was there last month when the features rolled out. For Copilot Pages, for those who are using that, along with Microsoft Loop, that's now available in all of the mobile apps. So if you use the mobile app of Copilot, you can now take what was generated, edit it in Pages, and bring it into a Loop component if you need that. If you're using the extensibility layer for building your own agents, that now has native graph connector support. So if you're in Fabric, you're using OneLake, you can just very simply connect to the environment, get the data points across without having to build a connector and the API call manually, which has been great. And then the way that web searching works in the agent builder will use your licensing. So important change there. If you use the agent builder, you can use web content and have it air quote search the web for content without additional licensing. If you're building agents in Copilot Studio and you want that to be able to search the web openly, not provided specific URLs, that requires you now to add a license into Azure AI to do that type of searching. It's only $35 additional a month, but that will give you a configuration ID that you need for those agents. And importantly, that helps track and add purview onto how it's doing web searching if you're building more complex agents. But can talk through that if you're building your own agents or if you would like us to help you build those agents, as building agents is much simpler than it seems, and Microsoft has given us and you the tools to do that and make you more efficient. So if you're new to agents, you need help and education on it, we can do that. Or if you want us to build them for you, we have a full team that all they do now is build Copilot agents, and those projects, seem like they'd be 100 grand, 200 grand. Most of those projects are in the scope, anywhere in the ballpark of about 2 to 15,000. Just depends on how complex you want to go. For OneNote, if you're using OneNote, what a lot of people, if you're using handwritten notes because you have a Surface or an iPad or something like that, Copilot can interpret written notes. So if you are someone who writes everything, Copilot can understand that. There's no need to translate that into text. It'll understand your handwritten notes, and then you can take notes directly from the flow of your Canvas in OneNote with Copilot, so you can have it interact with you while you're doing that. If you're someone who uses Viva Insights, lastly, and you're over the certain license count, there are more reports available now. So if you're interested in understanding your ROI, your ROT, there's reports there for you. If you want to see how different business units are using it, where you may want to drive more efficiency in specific apps, that capability is there. Now, I did a long run-up, and we're finally at the end, so I do appreciate everyone's time joining me today. I know that this was a long hour session of me just talking, so I do want to open the floor. I'm sure there were questions that came in that I completely ignored because I normally just kind of go in the flow. Sorry about that, but
That's all right, Julius. I let you run with it, but we do have a long list of questions. I think so much information, and folks just want to do a little bit of a deeper dive. So real quick, question about Purview. Is Purview or parts thereof being discontinued after 8/26/25?
So yes, so that announcement that came out was largely to do if you're using the old AIP plugin or using the old feature set. That is deprecated. That was deprecated last year and will be hard non-functional in August. So you do need to make the switch to using, the recommendation is to make the switch to using Intune, deploy Defender, and then from that platform, set up the connectors so that Purview can talk to Intune, can talk to Defender, and then all that will sync and onboard from there. So that part is going away. There are some additional nuanceable pieces that will be deprecated, but you can see if you're using those features in the portal. Most of those features, from my understanding and from when I've looked and talked with some of the other clients, weren't really being used. And the few that are, it's just a matter of when you switch to the newer way to do a lot of what those controls, it'll just function out of there. Microsoft is also moving a ton from what Purview used to enforce to being enforced via Defender and then just logged in Purview. So some of it has just moved to Defender, and you just need to make the appropriate control there. If you're struggling with that or you need more information on that, feel free to reach out. We can help you transform that as well.
Excellent. What's the cost of adding Copilot to the E5 licensing? You know, it's your favorite topic.
It is my favorite topic. So the web version, to call it out, so the web version of Microsoft Copilot, the enterprise version, is included with E3, E5, both Office 365 E3, E5, and Microsoft 365 E3, E5. So that will get you enterprise data protection and get you access to just the web version. So that's only the version that can access content on the web, but still transformative. You can still ask it questions about, I need to create a job posting, things of that nature. You can do it. If you want it to be grounded in data that's in your organization, take advantage of the connectors. You have a couple of options now. To add the Microsoft 365 Copilot license, this could be a long run, so stick with me. That is $30 per user per month, but the best way to do it is to have that billed annually. So it is an annual commitment with annual payment, so it'll be $360 per user per year. If you're doing it through a CSP, it gets billed in the rears. Or if you do it with us, that'll get billed in the rears. But you do have the option for doing monthly payments. I will note, with all the Microsoft licensing, if you're doing monthly payments today, there will be a 5% increase that goes into effect the middle of this month. So I believe it's the 15th. So April 15th, or I can confirm if everyone is interested, if you're doing monthly payments, you will get a 5% increase. Additionally, if you do monthly commit and monthly payment, you will see a double 5% increase in your licensing costs. So there will be a jump in your licensing that'll come the next couple of weeks. It's not ECI, it's not your partner, it is Microsoft making those changes. So if you want to look at doing annual commitment, I always recommend that you look at your hiring and firing, see where you are in your growth patterns, and then set a number. Normally it's between 60 to 80% of your licensing to be annual commitment. So with Copilot, you can do monthly billing, but that's a 5% increase in that cost on the monthly payment. But Copilot is only available as an annual commit, and that is how Microsoft has it posed.
Excellent. Um, Next question. As we run into issues with Copilot, for example, with Copilot not being able to search across all Microsoft platforms correctly, what is the best way to troubleshoot this? And what resources in terms of help centers are best to utilize?
Yeah. So that's a little bit difficult to answer directly, as there's about a million variables kind of in the question. But in most cases, if you're using the Microsoft 365 Work Copilot, you can go into Purview, review those interactions, and see kind of what it tried to do in a sense and where it tried to go. But that would be more of a compliance view of it, less of it went here to do X, Y, Z. I'd be interested to know what problem you're facing. A lot of those come down to how things were prompted. I find that a lot of clients that moved data into SharePoint or OneDrive, a lot of users are still using kind of the old nomenclature of like the share drive or the home drive or things of that nature, and that confuses Copilot. And there are certain features that are only available in certain apps and things of that nature. So I'd be interested to look at where you're facing those challenges and where we can look to help that. You can open a case with Microsoft, but they're likely aren't going to help too much. They're going to help you look at the prompts and look at kind of where user prompting may be better suited. So I would be interested to know kind of where you're struggling and can try and see if we can help with that. And then go ahead, Jen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, next question was regarding attach files if you want them to reference, even if the file lives within Microsoft systems. So I think that's probably when you're having Copilot navigate and summarize.
Yep. So it probably goes back to some of the problem you're experiencing in your previous question, because it's the same person, just to have it in the recording. So you do not always have to reference your files. It is recommended, largely because if you know where your content is and you know where it's going to be, you should just attach it as a referenceable file. That'll net you the best result. If you're using Copilot to search, I find that you do need to be specific on possibly what type of file it is, where it may be located, things of that nature. So if you're using Copilot to say, actually, for example, I do it all the time, if I know that, let's just say Chuck sent me a document in Microsoft Teams and it happened a couple of weeks ago, I will put that in the prompt. And I'll say, hey, Chuck sent me a Word document. It was kind of related to this. I can't find it. Can you get it for me? And it'll go ahead and do it and grab it. You can, in that prompt, also include timeframes. So if you said, I know that Chuck sent me something about a month ago, can you look about a month ago back on a document that's related to this? It will go and find that. So you do want to be specific. If you know the file name, again, include that. Don't forget that you can use quotes. You can use all your fun, fancy, special characters that you normally do with keyword searching, in most cases with Copilot and other AI tools. So if you know where the data is, reference it there. I will call out something I didn't mention is if you have your data already in SharePoint or Teams or OneDrive, Copilot, as long as you're licensed for it, there are Copilot agents built on top of every single Microsoft SharePoint site. So there's an agent that's there. You can customize that agent. It's what I've done with Jen for us internally to be able to quickly generate marketing materials from material that already exists. The site already has a Copilot on it. Users can ask questions directly from that agent, and then the goal is to build that agent up further. So if you have content that people are looking for HR or looking for marketing materials that I've mentioned, sales content, you just go straight to that SharePoint site, ask that question there, and that will be tailored and only use the content that's available in that SharePoint site. So really tailoring the search and the goal of the agent, air quote, with that knowledge. So I know that was long, but I hope it answered some of the question.
So much information. Last call for any questions. Wanted to just put it out there to see if anyone else had any questions for Julius while we have him on the line. There is nothing, as I'm sure you can tell, that Julius enjoys more than chatting about Microsoft Copilot. So maybe a few things, but we wanted to make sure that we answer all your questions. Julius, at this point, it looks like we did. This is one of many webinars we host regularly regarding Microsoft Copilot. I'm sure there'll be an update coming soon. If you don't have any other questions, we will wrap up. And to all of those that attended, thank you so much. We will send over the recording in case you missed anything, or if you have any further things that you want to check up on. Oh, looks like we had one come in the wire. Can Copilot be used with a website, Julius?
Yay, so that's a fun topic. So you do have options with Copilot to be able to do that. So if you are going to build an agent and you want it to be, well, let's rewind. So if you're using everyone's favorite web browser, Microsoft Edge, you should all be using it. It has Copilot native integration right out of the box. That Copilot can see what's on the page, it can see content that's there, and you can ask it questions about what is on the website. So as long as you open a Copilot in Edge, click on that web version of Edge and ask questions there, it will give you that information. If you want to build an agent as a knowledge source for a website, you can do that with the agent builder. So as long as that website is publicly facing and you can access it there, you can use the agent builder for it. If you want to include other internal websites that are hosted on a, an internal knowledge base or an internal document there, we can set up a connector to help connect to that data source. But you can do that. So as long as you provide the URL and it's something your account can access with the agent builder, it can go in there and find the content. If you want to do it from specific web pages, you can provide those as well. But when you go into agent building, as I briefly mentioned, if you want to have it do open web searches, you need an additional license to be able to do that. If you want to include a public-facing website, you do need to provide proof of ownership when you use Copilot Studio. That is largely because Copilot Studio can be more adjusted, let's just call it, than the agent builder. But when we do the session in May in the Microsoft Conference Center, we'll talk a bit about that in more context. But to answer your question shortly, yes, you can use a website. There's a couple of asterisks on how you can do it, and you have a couple of different options on how to get there. If you leave web content on by default in your tenant, it's on by default, it will do an open search to the web if users ask questions. And you may have noticed that. So if you're asking questions about content, you'll see normally it'll say from your organization, from the web. So that is doing a web search there. You can toggle that on and off globally or per chat. So you have options there. But yes, it can short, yes, long, there's asterisks.
Absolutely. Last question just came in. Will there be litigation hold on emails after Purview migration that you mentioned earlier?
Ooh, fun. Yes. So you have the option to trigger that. So if you want it to be where user risk automatically turns on litigation holds, you can do that. It'll do that automatically as a part of the new eDiscovery, because classic eDiscoveries, I guess classic's not the word to use. The previous eDiscovery, because it's changed 4 times now, is being deprecated for the new eDiscovery experience. In there, you can set up automations and triggers that say, this incident occurred, automatically create a case. When that case is created, litigation hold, do this, do that. That's all part of it. And you can now use Copilot interactions to infer that. So if someone starts asking risky questions, you can raise user risk, automatically apply those controls, and then lead into that. So yes, you can do all that.
Fantastic. Julius, thanks for the time. Thank you everyone for joining us. I'm sure this is the first of many, many conversations we will continue to have in the coming months. But thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to the next one.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Julius.